All right, Joel Gausten here from joelgausten.com. Still dealing with my voice being a little wonky, but fortunately, you don't come to my channel to listen to me talk. You come here to listen to my guests talk, and I'm very happy to have a great one to my left. Um, I've been looking forward to this one in the biggest way possible. I'm so excited.
All right, man.
Joining me from the great state of California, Mr. Tony Marsico. Marsico. See,
How
I
are
knew
you,
I
buddy?
was going to do that. Marsico.
That's okay. So
How
yeah,
are
there
you,
you
sir?
go. I'm good, Joel. Good to be here, my friend.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining me. And I got to thank our very good mutual friend, Lauren Molinaire, for
Yeah,
putting us in touch.
absolutely. The
Thank you.
great Lauren.
Yes, yes. Um, and it's interesting that you and Lauren play together in a band these days, and we'll definitely get to that. Um,
Yeah.
because he's by far the most well-traveled musician I personally know. But you're certainly up there as well. You have experiences and stories for days. So we can probably make this a 10-hour video if we wanted to, but we're going to try to kind of do the highlight reel version of this discussion.
Absolutely.
So really kind of starting at the most obvious place, which is the very beginning. Um, when and how did being a musician enter your life?
Yeah, well, I grew up in believe it or not, I grew up in the pizza business, but we had our own pizza shop. But in that basement of the shop was a ton of instruments, and my brother was a drummer. My uncle was a drummer, and it seemed like everybody around me played drums, really. And they got me into it when I was just a kid. And I grew up around the restaurant, and we had a jukebox in there. And I just grew up. We lived above our restaurant. I grew up going to bed every night to the jukebox, and that's what you could hear coming through through the floor of our apartment. Was the bass is the only thing that carried, so it was kind of natural to pick up on bass. And that's kind of how I learned by ear and by my brother helping me out and stuff. And that's the early days, in a nutshell.
Now, you were originally an East Coast guy, right?
Philadelphia, yeah. I was born in Philly, lived there up until 1980 through early punk rock days I spent there with bands and friends, and then headed west.
Excellent. And when did you end up arriving in California?
I got here late 1980, and kind of LA was really booming at the time. A lot of the punk bands were happening, and the Sunset Strip was still pretty wild and crazy. Uh, it was a great time to get to LA. Everything was really exploding musically. It was kind of like the resurgence of how it happened in the 60s with the Doors. We had our own thing going on around 1980, 79, 80 on Sunset and Hollywood area. It was a great time to be here. So I was lucky I got here during that.
And I imagine it wasn't terribly long after your arrival that you end up joining forces with the Plugz. You become the bass player.
Yeah, it wasn't long at all. Back then, everybody answered ads in the recycler, which was the local rag, the free rag that you pick up on the newsstand. I know DJ Bonebreak, I think he might have got an X through that. And I know a lot of people, that's what we did. We just combed the newspapers and you'd answer ads and you go. Plus, we went out and saw bands every night. So you're always talking to somebody and they know somebody. They refer you this and that. But believe it or not, that's how I got the audition for the Plugz. And it was pretty soon after I got to LA. I got real lucky hooking up with Tito and Chalo from the Plugz.
Yeah, what a band to join out of the gate. I mean, good Lord.
Yeah, it was all part of a great LA scene that was happening at that time. I was really fortunate to get right into it.
So when you joined the Plugz, the second album was already recorded at that point, right?
Second album had just been they were just pressing up the vinyl at the time. I was going to say CDs, but the vinyl, and that's what we supported. We supported that for a couple of years. The Better Luck album was the Plugz second album, and we didn't play much from the first Plugz album, but the second album was the one that we supported in all the shows that we did for a couple of years, which was really a great album. Still one of my favorite albums, Better Luck. I love it. Produced by a friend of ours, Gustavo, who at the time played bass on it. He played a lot of the instruments and is really responsible for that sound. And he's now a very famous film composer. He wrote the score for Brokeback Mountain and a whole list of movies. He was our friend. He was in a local band called Wet Picnic. A lot of people don't know. He's really responsible for a big part of that Plugz sound on that record, on Better Luck.
A few weeks back, I had Greg Keane.
Yeah.
And we did a chat, and the Plugz came up because I know Greg obviously, through Charlie, got involved with a lot of different things. I wanted to ask you specifically about Charlie because I'm a drummer.
Yeah.
And when I know I have a really big gig coming up, I have a short list of drummers that I go to for inspiration to get like my Rocky montage going,
Yeah.
And Charlie's definitely one of those drummers. And I know myself being a drummer, obviously I have to have some kind of a language and musical vocabulary with the bass player. We have to lock in.
Absolutely.
So, being a bass player and working with a drummer like Charlie, I mean, how would you best define the language that the two of you shared, especially in the early days of the Plugz?
Well, yeah. I mean, we're talking about the late Charlie, who was like a brother to me in the Plugz. We lost him not long ago, but Charlie, I don't even know how to explain Charlie's drumming. He was just like a powerhouse. He played with so much power and accuracy, both in one. And it was a hard driven beat that he would just dive into. He put everything he had into it. If you watch some of those old videos of Charlie, he's just like, he was like a machine, but not in a bad way, a machine, just a powerhouse of a drummer. Really easy for me to lock into. It was we had a pretty good rhythm section going there, for a while, and it would show. We did a lot of projects in different bands and this and that together as a rhythm section. But Charlie was a strong drummer. He was a great guy, man. Just a good guy to be around. You want to be in a band with friends, and family, and that's what the Plugz was like.
Excellent. And going back to Greg for a second, I know Greg had worked with the Plugz during what became your involvement in the Repo Man soundtrack,
that's right.
Soundtrack to Repo Man. How would you say Greg kind of impacted the proceedings and what the Plugz were doing at that time for that film?
Well, Charlie originally knew Greg from around town, and Greg fit right in. We at the time the Plugz we had added additional guitarist Stephen Huffstetter from the Quick, who had just got finished off the road with playing for Del Shannon and stuff, and we added Steve to the band. So when we got the Repo Man call to score the movie, we're like, well, we were thinking, doing our thing that we were doing at the time. It was kind of a little bit of a spaghetti Western kind of punk thing, but we didn't want it just to be copying that. So Greg is a great keyboard player. So we thought, let's bring Greg into the picture and he could add all these other sounds. And that's what kind of gives Repo Man that weird sci-fi spaghetti Western sound. Like without Greg, I can't imagine that sound, So he was a big part of that, Another great musician, man.
Oh yeah, amazing, and a really nice guy too.
Oh yeah, totally.
I've always been curious about this. The Plugz have been one of my favorite LA or California bands for a long time, and I lived in California for a while, and I really kind of soaked up the history, especially, the eras I wasn't a part of, because I was born in 77. So I missed the boat entirely. So I've been playing catch up ever since. Um,
Yeah.
but I've always really loved the Plugz, but I'm wondering, I don't know if you have an answer for this question. Why is it so difficult to get the first two Plugz albums? Why haven't they seemingly been reissued in a proper way?
Well, you'd have to understand uh, Tito, the singer from the Plugz, to really know that answer. And Tito just has a lot of different irons always in the fire, whether it be acting or his band or this or that. And I can't really give you the exact reason why he never reissued that stuff. I just think he probably hasn't gotten around to it, honestly. I know people ask me a lot, Plugz, where can I get this and that? And stuff was just a very limited edition back there. I mean, at that point, when I was in the Plugz, we were driving around in Tito's Buick, old Buick, selling the album and 45s out of the trunk of her car. And that was like, we thought that was big time. So I don't know why he hasn't reissued them, because there is a demand for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, there is.
Yeah.
We have YouTube, and that's fine, but
Right.
it'd be nice to have it reissued, and everybody can have some royalties from it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I can't really give you the correct answer. That's just my take on it. That he's busy and a little scattered with this business wise and that, but he's basically he keeps busy, and I don't know. I don't know why.
Yeah, yeah. Well, here's to hoping someday that
Yeah.
comes to comes
Yeah.
to. Um, Kind of around this time, um, you and Charlie, and Greg as well, work with Bob Dylan.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And how did the initial meeting with Bob happen? Because you don't run into Bob Dylan every day at the cafe. There has to be a specific series of events that leads that to happen.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple different connections to that, and one is people have reported they saw him down at the Music Machine checking out one of our shows, and I know for a fact that Charlie's girlfriend at one point was doing some secretarial work and heard through the grapevine they were casting for a Bob Dylan video. Now they weren't the musicians in it wouldn't really be playing; they would be lip syncing. And then cut to Charlie and Greg being cast for those roles in the Bob Dylan "Sweetheart Like You" video. So they're in that video. So I came into the picture after the video. They
Mhm.
had already done that, and with Carla Olson from the Textones, another great guitarist, friend, producer from LA, and uh, she's the guitarist in the video as well. And then I would come into the picture right after that, yeah, with the
And
Dylan connection.
I know this is something you get asked about a lot, but to the
Yeah.
very best of my recollection, I've never interviewed someone who's performed on Late Night with David Letterman. Um,
Mm,
that was yourself, Bob, Charlie, and JJ Holiday on guitar.
that's right. Yeah,
Uh,
JJ was in a band called Black Patty, also a good friend of ours, and really a great guitarist who's well versed in a lot of different styles. So I think that's why JJ was on that gig with us. But that was our band, four piece.
and I know there are some legends associated with that show. Um, am I correct that the band, meaning you three guys,
Yeah,
didn't even know what you were going to play when you showed up there?
we didn't know. No, we had done. Prior to that, Bob had asked us if he was looking for guys to jam up at his house. So we had a series of auditions. They brought up all different kinds of musicians for a while. Charlie was really responsible for that, our drummer. And then when I went up, the band kind of solidified, and Bob went with this trio of me, Charlie, and JJ. And we just rehearsed up at his house, but we never. It wasn't like the Plugz and other bands I've been in where you go and you rehearse songs. Like Bob's idea of rehearsing is just go in a room and jam and try different grooves and this and that. And it was very surreal. We were doing it at Point Doom at his house overlooking the ocean, and we were used to bashing out in crappy rehearsal rooms, and stuff. We weren't used to playing songs for 20 minutes. Our plug song was, you could fit like a whole set in 20 minutes. So it was a very different experience. But that's how Bob did things. I'm not
Now,
sure if I answered the question yet.
yeah, I mean, did you guys know what songs you'd be doing when you showed up there?
Yeah, we didn't know when we went to New York. Uh, Everything had always been fuzzy with Bob. We weren't really told we were going to be in a band with him. We were going to do shows or anything. Everything just came spur of the moment. So his manager, Bill Graham, went to New York with us, and at that time we had jammed a little before the show, and we were curious. I mean, me, Charlie, and JJ, we were just kind of green. We hadn't done any national TV where you play in front of millions of people and stuff. So we're like, it would be nice to know what we're doing, how many songs we're doing, this and that. And right before the show, we had asked uh, Bill Graham, if he could ask Bob what we're going to do, because Bob wasn't telling us. And Bill just said, we don't know. We're just going to, he couldn't give us an answer. So we didn't know what songs we were going to do until we walked out on the stage, really grabbed their instruments, and they introduced us. And then Bob looks over and he goes, Sonny Boy. And we know Sonny Boy Williamson. And, basically when we were walking out, Bob said, just follow me on everything. So it was a kind of wing, or flying by the seat of your pants, to say the least. We were guessing on the keys. We had some rehearsals of the Bob's original songs for the show, but like I said, we never had real rehearsals where we were locked in like bands do. It was very loose, as you could see on TV. So therefore, you either like it or you really hate it, the performance. So, JJ always jokes and said, if we had a second show on TV, it would be much better. But it is what it is. So,
Yeah, I
we
personally
didn't,
love
yeah,
that.
we
Yeah.
didn't think we didn't think that people would really be talking about it 40 years later. So me and JJ, we got interviewed for the new Bob Dylan Center in Tulsa, and I guess there's a little section in the museum on the Plugz and videos and stuff like that if you go to the museum. So at least we got something in there. We got something next to some of our other great musicians that we love. That many people have played with Bob over the years. So we're privileged to get in there. We never thought a couple punks from LA would wind up in a museum. It's kind of ironic, but it happened. So
Yeah, that's great. That's great, man.
yeah.
It was generally around this time as well that the Plugz, I guess I could say, rebranded as
Yeah.
Cruzados. What
Mhm.
led to that decision to totally change the name of the band?
Yeah, well, we brought Stephen Hofstetter into the picture, and we just felt like a lot of the Plugz material from the first album, we weren't playing anymore. We were writing a lot of songs. We'd go in and lock out a rehearsal for hours and just toss ideas around, and we didn't really sound like the same band, and nor did we want to be limited. Like, we're a punk band, we're this, that. We just wanted to write new stuff, and so we felt like we needed an rebranding of our name, because we weren't that band. If people weren't, they were coming out to see us. A lot of people were coming out to hear us play La Bamba and, Million Miles an Hour and all this stuff. And when they get there, they're going to see a different band. Our interests were really growing at the time. And we had went to New York to uh, try and, I guess, perform for labels and this and that, which we did at CBGB's, which eventually we would get signed out of there by Clive Davis on Arista and stuff. But at the time, we were a different band. So when we went to New York and we came back from New York after that trip, we just changed our name to Cruzados, which basically means in Spanish, like to cross over, like cross over a bridge or something. That's how we felt what we were doing at the time. We were moving ahead. We were crossing over to different territory. So we felt like we needed a new name. And it was really refreshing, when you it's the same guys, new songs, same kind of diehard attitude, not much change, but the music changed. So we needed a new rebranding.
And the Cruzados, the original era of the band,
Yeah.
lasted 2 albums, but there are a lot of very interesting highlights during that era. One that immediately comes to mind for me is you guys actually toured with Fleetwood Mac during Tango in the Night, right? That was the
That's right. Yeah. We did a lot of touring over those. It was a span of 4 years. We really didn't stop touring. But Tango in the Night was a 3-month tour, opening slot for Fleetwood Mac, which was really awesome. They had come and they saw us play at the Roxy in LA. They came out, and Stevie Nicks actually heard our song. We had a single on the air at the time called Bed of Lies, and she told us that she was lying in her bathtub and she heard the song and wanted to know who this band was. So she tracked us down. They came to the Roxy, saw us, and asked us on the spot that night. Christine McVie was there, and John McVie, and just said, you want to be the band 3 months on the road? So we're like, yeah, well, it beats playing Al's Bar every night, even though I loved Al's Bar. But yeah, it was a new experience. It was great, a great time. So
now is that
and we
tour-
toured. I'm sorry, we toured with a lot of bands like that back in the day. We did tours with Joe Walsh, opened for Zevon, for Stevie Wonder. It's just all over the map. But there were always a lot of high-profile bands we opened for. We did extensive tours with In Excess, European tours, whoever kind of was hot at the time. We did Billy Idol. We did a tour where we toured nonstop really for 4 years, and that kind of is what made Cruzados implode. I think it was just too much, and we didn't know how to say no to a good party. Honestly, Cruzados we like to have a good time on the road, so we lost our mind a little.
well, but before the band took an extended hiatus, let's say, I don't want to say a breakup because the Cruzados are back, and we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But before things halted in the 80s, the band had brought in a replacement guitarist for Steve,
Yeah.
who, in my opinion, is an incredibly underrated musician. I was
Yeah.
first introduced to Marshall through his work with TSOL, who I'm a big fan
Yeah,
of.
that's right.
And I think Marshall, unfortunately, sometimes gets overlooked. So I wanted to perhaps ask you a little bit about Marshall and how he came into the band and what he brought to the overall picture.
Marshall was, man, I never saw a guy like Marshall in my life. Just raw, crazy energy, super talented guy. And at the time he was playing in a local rockabilly band called Jimmy and the Mustangs. And we were a fan of that band, and Marshall's playing. He was really young at the time. And when we were ready to go on the road, Steven said, I don't want to go on the road at the time yet. He was having a relationship with the director, John Cassavetes's daughter. They were real tight, and he didn't want to leave her. So he was putting together a band for her at the time. And we knew Marshall, and we knew how great of a player he was. And he just came right into the fold, and we couldn't ask someone better to come in. He just fit right into Cruzados, and his energy was unbelievable. And he was just great and fun to be around on the road. And if you're going to be touring with somebody for years, like I said, you want it to be family and fun. And Cruzados always had a ball on the road and made the most of our live gigs. That was kind of our thing. That's what we were about.
Yeah, definitely a great player. And it's it's a shame he's passed on for sure.
It's very sad. Marshall he was just a kid with a lot of demons, and he couldn't get past them. It was just too overwhelming. And Marshall got so much attention from touring on the road from everybody and this and that. I think it was too much for him to deal with, I think. So we lost a great one when we lost Marshall. It's been quite a long time.
Yeah.
Great kid. Great kid. Love the kid. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's if I'm not mistaken, I think it's 18 years this month,
Oh
actually.
my God, that's unbelievable. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he was a great guy. Yeah.
Now, we should
Rock and
mention,
roll,
I'm sorry?
rock and roll tragedies. It's, I could give you a list of them, as you know. It goes with the territory, unfortunately. But
Yeah,
uh,
it's an occupational hazard in this profession,
exactly.
unfortunately.
Well,
But
yeah,
he's on some great records that people can go find,
yeah,
uh, and that's what's great is that's immortality that doesn't go away.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Marshall can be seen. Uh, he's on there for the movie Roadhouse. That's Marshall
right.
in the beginning of the movie Roadhouse. You'll see Marshall playing. So that's, you can always tune in late some night somewhere and probably find Roadhouse. So it's good. Once in a while, I'll see Marshall. It's a good feeling. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, Cruzados kind of burned out for a while.
yeah,
That was it for you guys for many years. You carried on and worked with so many different musicians. Um, and I would love to do an hour long video on every one of them because I'm sure they each have their own very unique stories. But
mm,
just a few you've worked with: Roger Daltrey, Willie Nelson, the Divinyls, Juliana Hatfield, Linda
yeah,
Ronstadt. I mean, it's an immense list. Um, there are two in particular I did want to ask you about because they're
yeah.
among my favorites for years. And the first one is probably in my top five favorite singers of all time, Marianne Faithfull.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So I need to
yeah.
ask you how that all came about and what your experiences were like with her.
Sure. Well, all these sessions and stuff that I did for years kind of happened by default. I was always a band guy, and I never expected to branch off. And a lot of the things I did were one-offs or tours or this or that or recordings, but I never really planned on being a session man. I just kind of morphed into that. But the Marianne Faithful, that was early 2000. That was an experience that I'll never forget. Mainly because, well, I was a big fan of her music, and she's just such a character. And I could talk probably for a whole day about Marianne and what it was like living with her. We lived on a sheep farm rehearsing for a month in the countryside in England in the 16th century house. Her best friend was Kate Moss, the supermodel, and Anita Pallenberg, Keith Richards' ex. We all stayed in this house. So uh, Marianne she was kind of wild and out of control. She's like the female Keith Richards, and she's always got a good story for you, that's for sure. So uh, it was a great time. We just went over and did some European dates with her, but it was a great experience. Yeah.
How would you say what makes her approach unique? When I listen to a Marianne record, it's a
Yeah.
Marianne record, and you've
Yeah.
been very close with her and performed with her. What do you think she brings to a performance that
Well,
can only be from her?
I I think there's no BS from Marianne. She wears it on her sleeve who she is, and I think she's not about her celebrity or this or that. She's just being herself, and to a lot of people, she's pretty outrageous. But she just says what she wants, and I think her music is like this. She just comes across like genuine and real. Uh, and that's what I hear when I hear her songs, and I hear it in her voice. And when she's on doing a big play in England somewhere or something, that's why people come to see her. Not because she's the best actress, but she's Marianne. She's a character, but it's her. She's the real deal. It's like hanging out with Keith Richards or somebody. You're not going to get this fake character or BS. Someone in the music industry, you're going to get someone that is kind of a legend, and that's who she is. And I hear that in her music. When I listen to it, you know when somebody's real, if they're putting it on or not when you hear a record. So
Yeah.
Yeah, she was a trip. Yeah.
Yeah, she can break your heart and put it back together in a span of 4 minutes.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Someone else you worked with was Susanna Hoffs from the Bangles.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Great girl. I love Susanna, and that came about just from working. I played bass for pop singer songwriter Matthew Sweet for a long time, almost 14 years, and right around the time of the Austin Power movies and all this, Matthew and Susanna Hoffs hooked up. They did the music for the Austin Power movies and this and that. That's when I first met her. Mike Myers would come see her band and stuff, and then Matthew and Susanna started teaming up, doing a couple duets albums together, and we went out and did a tour backing them up with Matthew and Susanna, and another girl from the local scene, the Bangles, who we knew them back when they were the Bangs, and early on. She's fabulous. I love Susanna. Great band she has. So yeah, that was another great experience. I love working with her. Yeah.
So when you were playing with Matthew Sweet, was some of
Hmm.
that time spent with Richard Lloyd in the band as well?
Oh yeah, Richard. The two guitars over those 14 years were Richard Lloyd, Ivan Julian from
Well,
uh,
yeah.
Voidoids, and the late great Pete Phillips, a friend of ours as well, was a great guitar player. We spent a lot of time. Me and Richard Lloyd spent a lot of time on the road together the first couple of years with Matthew, and I had known Richard prior to that. Of course, I knew his band Television and was always loved Richard's playing. But I first met Richard way back because I toured with John Doe from X. We did a solo album for Geffen years ago, and we did a whole tour. And Richard was the guitar player in that band with me, along with John D. Graham from the True Believers. So we go way back to that project, and then we toured with Matthew for a long time on the road. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, Richard's an interesting guy. I've interviewed him 3 times over the years and have talked to him away from that. And he he kind of makes my job easy as an interviewer because all I have to do is sit back and listen for an hour. It's brilliant. He's a brilliant man.
Yeah, he's a sharp guy, man, and I highly suggest to people, if they haven't read his book, to read his book. It's mind blowing.
Yeah,
Yeah, he
everything
he
is
has a lot.
yeah. Yeah, it's a fantastic read. Speaking of reads, in addition to all your musical adventures, you are an author. And is it 3 books that you've published over the years?
I have four, but yeah, three about music, kind of three about growing up playing music and doing all different sessions and gigs and stuff like that. The main one is called "I'm Just Here for the Gig," was my main book, and it's crazy anecdotes and stories of over 40 plus years of playing with uh, different known musicians, unknowns, knowns, whatever, all different people in different scenarios, and that's focuses mainly on ridiculous, crazy gigs. I like to focus on the gigs that go wrong rather than tell you all the gigs that just went perfect. So it's that kind of thing. It was just a fun read. It's nothing heavy. Richard's book is heavy, man. Mine's just a fun read. I like to tell my little stories about, what happened in the studio with this person or that. So yeah, it's fun. I like doing that. As you know, you write, so you know what it's like. It's fun to get your stuff, your ideas out there, and it felt really good to write these books. I felt like I could clear my brain finally and delete all that stuff in my brain that had been stuck there for so long. All these stories. It was like, okay, out with the old. Let's put some new stories and ideas in there now, because I had been holding those stories for years in my head, and I always wanted to put them down, but I just never got around to it. But it felt good. It was a good time.
Excellent. What's one crazy concert experience that maybe on top of the tree of the tree of insane life in music?
Wow, crazy concert or just crazy gig. I don't even know where to start. I've had, I've been doing weird one-off gigs for like 40 years. I've played every kind of gig that you can play. Not all like rock star type gigs you want to brag about or talk about. I've done every kind of gig from you know, just the smallest gigs to I played the smallest dives to, Madison Square Garden to it's just all over the map, the kind of gigs I do. And, of course the Dylan one always goes in people's minds about how kind of unrehearsed and how loose it was. And, I guess that story sticks around because it's on video and people can watch it in real time as it happened. And we're on stage and Bob at his big moment grabs a harmonica and he's ready to go into the big harmonica solo, and the TV cameras are all on Bob, and he blows a couple notes and it sounds like a train went off the tracks because the roadie handed him the wrong harmonica. It doesn't sound like much, but when you're playing in front of millions of people, the camera's on you, and you can see Bob in the back of the stage going, he throws his arms up in the air like, what the is going on here. And that was a good moment. The cameramen at the TV show, the lights are flashing, they didn't know who to put the camera on, they wanted to take it off of Bob, they're pointing it at us instead. And we were always told, just follow me, Bob, just follow me. And that's what we did. That song goes on forever, and it's all on live TV. You can see it's a real cluster F going on there on stage, and it's on video, so it's pretty funny. And I'd later found out, which not a lot of people know, but I had heard it was for people that have seen that, know what I'm talking about. I had heard it was due to a disgruntled roadie that kind of had it out for Bob, for maybe for flirting with his girl or something, and thought it would be fun to give Bob the wrong equipment on national TV. So that was a good little moment.
Now, throughout the years, you've been concurrently involved with a project called the Martini Kings,
Right.
which I think goes back to even like during the Plugz days, you were involved in that.
That's right. I've always had I've always had a jazz band on the back burner because I grew up like I said early on, my uncle was a bebop drummer. My brother's a jazz drummer, brother Frank. So I grew up around a lot of jazz and stuff like that. I'm not a fan of new jazz, but I grew up back then listening to the good stuff. And me and my brother put a band together in end of 1980. And to this day, we have a new album coming out in the spring on Rumbar Records. It's our 40th anniversary. Kind of, it's a nice package that Rumbar Records is putting out for us. So we put a lot of time, but I always like having my hand in different things. And I like to play upright bass. I'm a bass player is my main trade. And I never really get to play upright with my rock band. So I do with Roger Daltrey. I mix it up. I played some upright and electric, but for the most part, so in my jazz band, I get to, play some upright, which I love. So it's been a good outlet on the side, just like, I know Charlie Watts had his thing on the side for years, and he managed to do all right with the other stuff and keep that going too with the Stones. So I figured, why not early on, do whatever you want to do. Don't worry what people think. So a lot of people poo-poo jazz or this or that. I don't. To me, it's just music, man. It's just another side of me that I like to do and play. It's challenging. It's fun.
And the Martini Kings, this upcoming release, that will be record number 26, right? For the Martini Kings?
That's record 26. I know it's hard to believe, man. I don't know where the time went, but yeah. It's a lot of records.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
Most bands don't last 26 weeks, let alone put out 26 records. Great.
Yeah. Well, guys need hobbies, and that's our hobby, recording. I love to record. That's what I do for fun. So
Well, I was really surprised a couple years back. I guess it was 2021 when I
Yeah.
found out not only were Cruzados back, but Warren's in the band and a couple of the other guys from Warren's band, Little Caesar. And there was new music. There's new
Yeah.
Cruzados music in the here and now. Um, what led you to bring the band back after, decades plus?
Yeah, well, everybody separated back in the Cruzado days. They moved to Tito lives in Texas. Stephen Hofstadter moved to Arizona. And during the pandemic, like everyone else, I kind of questioned my life and what the hell am I ever going to get to rock out again? All my gigs stopped for 2 years, nothing to do. I was losing my mind. And then I started thinking one day, my girlfriend actually put the bug in my head because I had been playing. I actually got a cassette player. She bought home this old cassette player boombox, and I found a Cruzados cassette and popped it in. We're just sitting around. You had nothing to do. We're trapped inside the house, and I start listening to some of the songs, and I go, I like some of these songs, and I wrote a lot of these, and I hadn't played them in 35 years or whatever. So I said I'd like to be able to play some of my songs again. I thought it would be something different, and get to rock out a little again. I've been so used to backing everyone else up, I kind of forgot about. I always wrote songs, but I just forgot what it was like to do my own thing for a while, and I thought I'd try it for a while, and I just kind of had the idea, and which led me to, okay, now who's going to do this project with me that's local, that I know about, and that's how it happened. We were friends with the band Little Caesar back in the '80s, very good friends with them. Lauren Molinare, Ron Young, vocalist, Mark Tremaya, which plays with Little Caesar now, and a new drummer that I met, which is a great guy, Rob Clennell. I brought this unit together, and I couldn't really say no. These guys were like, since we had a history already, they know my style of music that I like. I really respected all these guys. I know they're all more than capable. Lauren, we go way back. They just made it very easy for me to get this group of guys together. We were recording in no time. Since then, we've knocked a couple albums out, a couple European tours together. So it's been a great experience. These guys are awesome band to have. Yeah, I'm really lucky.
Yeah, you guys really hit the ground running. You've been very prolific
It's
since this lineup came together. There's
mhm.
really good stuff out there. I know there's kind of a recent special edition. It's kind of a compilation of
That's
a
right.
couple different parts.
Yeah, Rumbar put out a new album. It's a part live from Europe, filmed in it was not filmed, recorded in France, Marseille, and it's like half live tracks from a show mixed with some all new originals, and it's called Land of the Endless Sun.
Mhm.
I think that's it. I know that's our single. I get mixed up with my different projects. Yeah. So
Well,
yeah,
and
it's been great. It's great having a rock band again, man, and rocking out, as they say. So a lot of fun.
it's kind of interesting, because Cruzados are back and the original band, the original era, because you had two different
Yeah,
guitar players in there.
right.
Uh, that was the 80s. That was
Yeah,
a whole machinery in the music industry. You're on Arista, you have videos, you're in Roadhouse, you're touring with Fleetwood Mac, everything is so
right.
big and music industry driven to that.
Yeah.
The music industry then, doesn't exist now. I mean, how would you compare doing what you do now to dealing with the machinery back in the day? What are the advantages and
Well,
disadvantages to how it is now?
look, the advantages are, let's face it, back in the day, if you want to do a tour, you have band support, tour support. With a record company like ours behind you, they're willing to put up millions of dollars for you, whatever it takes, those days are gone. We realize that, but we're ourselves mentally, as we age, we're in a different spot. We don't really care. These days, I do things because I love them. And business is secondary, when you get older, you just realize, hey, I want to write a good song. That's what makes me happy, or going on the road or doing a gig down at a bar with the guys. That's what I live for, just playing rock and roll. It's still fun to do. And there's no big machine attached to it, that's for sure. So it's humbling if you're looking for that, but we're not looking for that. We're looking to make some good music, and to be able to record and do what you want it's a fabulous luxury, that if you can pull together a band and pull this off and tour Europe and meet people all over the world, and reconnect. It's pretty amazing that you can do this, a band, without any record labels or support.
Right.
So we've been real fortunate to do that, and get back out there again. It's been so much fun, really, honestly.
That's great. And the new music is great too. I think I'm a big Little Caesar fan myself, and
Yeah.
the Warren is, a legendary punk with the Dogs, and he's got this whole history, and was with the Pagans with my friend Mike Hudson for a while.
Oh,
And Ron is one of my favorite rock singers. I mean, the guy's
yeah.
got such a style to him.
Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of like the best of both worlds in a way. You've got the Little Caesar
Yeah.
thing with the Cruzados thing. It just works, man. So I'm really thrilled that the band's back doing what it's doing.
Yeah, I'm lucky. I'm very lucky to have those guys, with me. So it's been nothing but a great experience so far. And I hope to just keep writing songs and doing more gigs. That's what we like doing. So
Excellent. And if that weren't enough, you just put out a solo EP, Sleepwalker, which
sure.
I absolutely love as well. Thank you for sending it along to me. It's just
Oh
fantastic.
yeah.
Um,
Thanks.
I love all the songs on it, but I got to mention, you cover one of my top 10 favorite songs of all time, Starry Eyes by Rocky
Uh-huh.
Harris.
Yeah.
So I got to ask you about your choice to do
Uh,
that.
well, yeah, we had that was my girlfriend Janelle's choice, because we're big Rocky fans, and we went and saw him the last time he performed in LA. And it was tragic. I mean, he was so sick and so ill on stage. He sat down the whole night. But it's Rocky Erickson, man, and the band was behind him 100%. You could see that they were in it for the love of Rocky, but he was struggling, but he had a good expression on his face the whole show. He wasn't playing guitar much, but he was singing, and he looked happy to be up there, but he was hurting. So, like I said, we're fans. And when we came uh, around time to look for a cover, my girlfriend said, "Oh, why don't you do that Rocky song?" No, she didn't. She said, "Why don't you do Starry Eyes?" And I'm like, "Starry Eyes? Oh, I like that song too, by the Records." And another one of my favorite songs, right? I love that single by the Records. But she said, "No, Rocky." I go, "Oh yeah, let's do that." And it was an instant, like, yeah, let's record that.
Yeah,
Our little tribute.
yeah, and you really do the man justice with it. I got to tell you.
Thanks. That's a very hard song to do. I mean, that guy's he's he's like God in my eyes. Nobody could build a song like that, and so I don't try and mimic that. It's not who I am. I can't do that kind of style, But just as a tribute, I love doing it as a tribute to him. So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
I saw Rocky twice. First time I saw him was when he was just kind of coming back after a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and he was playing a place in Boston called TT the Bears. And I was really upset with the crowd that night. It was a very kind of collegiate, kind of hipster vibe. Everybody talked through the show, which
Yeah.
drives me nuts. When
Right.
Rocky went to the stage, and I don't know what happened. I think something might have spooked him as he was walking up, because he like
Yeah.
walked up and there's the crowd, and he turned to his left and sang to the wall the entire time. So like
Whoa.
something, I don't know what it was.
Whoa.
Something got him, as he was kind of getting ready.
Wow.
Then I saw him years later, and it was around the time you saw him, because he came out sat down, didn't have the guitar. But when he came on stage, the entire audience hushed. Because I think there
Yeah.
was a feeling when we saw him like, shut up, this is the last time, he's not
Yeah.
coming back again. So take it
Yeah.
in. And of
Take it
course,
in.
everybody was very reverential, and Rocky was having a rough time getting through the songs.
Yeah.
He'd miss his
Yeah.
part. None of it mattered.
Yeah. It
And,
didn't matter. Yeah.
and he ended with, "You're going to miss me." Then his voice
Yeah.
came out, and you're like, that's the guy. And he was gone,
Oh man.
he was gone just a couple months later.
Yeah.
Wasn't
Yeah.
long before he passed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
Great.
extraordinary.
Great. Yeah. I
So,
just read a good book. Finished reading a good book on him as well.
mm,
Uh, what a life that guy lived, man. Unbelievable.
and
But
you,
I was fortunate I got to see him. I'm just thrilled I went to that last show. So
yeah, me too, for sure, for sure. Um, we got to touch on something else. Like I said, there's so many areas that we can get into together. You've been involved in film production as well, in addition to all this music stuff. Um, well, tell me a little bit about that and those endeavors and where you are.
yeah, well, there's a little connection to the film stuff over the years. I always I mean, ever since the Repo Man thing, it gave me the bug to be involved in things here and there. So uh, over the years, director Robert Rodriguez, he came and saw the Cruzados back in the day playing a little bar in Texas, and he wasn't the famous director yet. So he kind of kept us in, on the radar, the Cruzados for many years later. I mean, many years later, he contacted us about music for his movies, and if you don't know who that is, he did Dust from Dusk Till Dawn, Desperado, his a whole trilogy of stuff that many records that he did with films he did with Quentin Tarantino and stuff like that. He's very prolific. Uh, he contacted us because he was a fan, just a fan at a bar that liked Cruzados, and kept us in the back of his mind. But we had a lot of our songs in the old Cruzado days from I would say 83, 84, that were our most popular songs in the set that we did. A lot have resurfaced 15 years later in different movies and things. I don't know how that happened, but like the song After Dark, which we played in 1982, 83, that would appear in From Dusk Till Dawn. That's the big Selma Hayek scene where she's charming the snake and the dancing. That's our old Cruzado song, After Dark. And a lot of the other songs would come out, Flor de Mal, which would come out in his record, in his movies. And he used many of our songs. He still does. And one of them I co-wrote, which was for the movie Antonio Banderas, Selma Hayek movie called Desperado. Uh, song was called Back to the House That Love Built. That was one of my songs. And he likes our music. It goes well, I think, with his movies. So that started the whole connection with film, and I always enjoy doing that. And right now, I'm actually scoring the music uh, for a film that I'm producing, which is called Kabali, and it's I play a lot of tiki music these days and stuff like that, exotica, Martin Denny type stuff. I like that genre of
Yeah,
music,
yeah.
and so I'm scoring a couple songs here and there and some soundtrack stuff for that movie, which will come out in this coming spring as well. So that's keeping me busy right now doing that project.
Excellent, excellent. You mentioned earlier there's Martini Kings release coming up in the early
Yeah.
month of 2024. How does the rest of your next year look so far in terms of all the bands and projects you have going on?
Well, it's always looking good. Springtime's a big time to get out there on the road and stuff. And right in the new year, we have some Cruzados stuff coming up. So we got a lot going on. I got a lot going on right now, but I'm game for that. I say let's get out there and do some shows. I'd like to do some live stuff now. I've put a lot of work in recording a lot of different albums this past year. So now I like to kind of reap the rewards, and that for me, the reward is getting on the road and playing live, whether whether we're drawing big numbers or not. It's just fun to get out with the guys and tour and play. So yeah, we got some good stuff coming up. I'm going to be keeping busy. So,
Great, great. Well, a couple of things. I said this to Greg Keene when he was a guest. I mentioned it to Lauren when he was on as well a couple of weeks back. If there's ever a Mount Rushmore of California punk, the Plugz deserve to be on it. Truly. I mean, you guys were extraordinary. And you guys, I talk to people all the time who love the Plugz, man. And from the old schoolers to newer people who are kind of getting into all these things now. And I just appreciate what the band did.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm lucky to be part of all that scene, and that whole scene back in the day. All the bands that we played with, man, still some of my favorite stuff. X is still playing. We did a million shows with X and Plugz and the Blasters and all the LA bands at the time. It was a great scene, and I just happen to be part of all that stuff.
Excellent. And where are some places that are good for people to follow you online and keep track of all the things you've got going on now and moving forward?
Yeah. Well, obviously we got a Cruzados website and stuff like that. That's more like you could see the history of the band and this and that, Cruzados. But I would say just hit us up on Facebook. Cruzados have a Facebook page. I have my own personal page, Tony Marsico, which is Facebook. I'm not very high tech, so people shoot me messages all the time and ask questions about stuff, and I get back to them. Eventually, I'm just like, I'm not high tech, so all my friends will tell you that, but we do reply, and people reach out if you got a question or you want to know something about us. I always like talking to different people, here and there.
Great. Well, I'll definitely put up the Bandcamp links as well.
That'd be great.
Your solo stuff and the Cruzados, and
Cool.
so I can direct people to there, and they can check out the EP, the Sleepwalker EP, and all the new Cruzados stuff.
Yeah.
Definitely great music, man. And I appreciate the fact you brought the band back with my buddy, which makes it even better. And I really wish you guys a great 2024, and looking forward to hearing what's going to come next, for sure.
Same to you. Are you drumming these days still?
Here and there. I've got a project I'm doing with some friends overseas at the moment. Tracks. I'm actually finishing up a song with 4 drummers in total.
Oh wow.
Yeah, 4 drummers, 2 bass players, a saxophonist, 2 singers, and a guitarist.
Wow.
It's a 10-person band. So
2 bass players. I love it.
Yeah. It's been like 6 years in the making to finish one song, but it's fun. It's fun. And with COVID, everything kind of slowed down. So I'm hoping that my opportunities, continue to kind of build up again. But mostly I'm writing and doing this sort of thing at the moment.
Yeah. Well, hey, I really appreciate you having me on, man. It's been a gas, and hope I wasn't too long-winded.
No,
thanks again, Joe.
No, I've wanted to talk to you for a long time, man, and I really appreciate you giving me some time, and that Lauren hooked us up for all this. So until next time, Mr. Marsico. See, I had to pronounce your name correctly before we wrapped up, and I apologize for earlier.
No, thank you very much, man. Great chat. Great being here.
Excellent. Tony, till next time. Take care.
Good luck, pal. Talk to you soon.
Cheers.